Hi, and welcome to my channel. This is going to be my channel about systems administration, mainly IT and technical things involving computers, programming, networking, things like that. So, well, let's get to it. So, I have this presentation here that's going to be going into just basic about me stuff. Oh, okay. Alright, so let's kind of get into it. So, firstly, to start, this is the system administration channel. We're going to go over a little bit about who I am, some cool stuff I've done, why I'm creating this channel, future plans for the channel, social media, and closing words. Excuse me for a second while I fix my camera. Okay, so who am I? Well, my name is Nekomata. I don't give out my real name for obvious reasons. I mean, some people like to do that, but I don't. I value my privacy, but I don't have a special reason for choosing this name. I've bounced around. I've been on the internet for a very long time, since I was a kid, and I bounced names around a lot. I chose a lot of different names, but this is one that I've just stuck with since 2017. It's been about 9 years. Very unlikely to change, so that's just my name now, I guess, online. I chose it because of a scene in Neo where Hattori Hanzo brings out his cat. And I thought it was funny, and I like cats, so yeah. So a little bit more about myself is that I'm kind of a NEET. I don't really work or have a job. I went to school, and I went there for a very long time, and then I just dropped out. And they didn't have any of the classes that I needed, and I thought I didn't have it in me to do general ed. But I've been back in school recently. I went back and did all my general ed stuff, so I'm on track to get my degree next semester, so that's pretty cool. But other than that, I have a lot of extensive experience with technology in general, just by messing around on my home devices. So I've been doing a lot of programming, a lot of cybersecurity, a lot of networking and stuff like that, and that was what I went to school for as well. So some of the things I did at school, I did Network Plus, Linux Plus, A Plus, Security Plus. I did the Cybersecurity Analyst first. I did Certified Ethical Hacker. I did my CCNA, Certified Cisco Network Associate. Did CCNA Security, and recently I just got my Palo Alto stuff done. So that's the Palo Alto Associate and the Computer Specialist, I think. I've also messed around with different programming languages. I messed with C++, Python, Lua, and SQL. So let's move on a little bit further. So I have autism. I always grew up as that weird, quiet kid, and I don't know. I guess I never really, like I know there's the internet meme of autism where people kind of say like they're autistic because they're weird, but I actually went and got diagnosed by a PhD at the well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but without exposing my privacy, but I went to the center where they did that, and they diagnosed me. They took an IQ test, they did all these tests, and then they kind of went out and told me. But before that, I lived with the suspicion that I had it, but I just never really went and got the diagnosis because my mom didn't want me to get held back in school. And, well, look where I am now, right? So, might have been helpful to get that help earlier on, but, it is what it is. That's why I'm here talking to you now. So, I grew up with a lot of technology as I was growing up. So I grew up with landline phones. So I wasn't an iPad kid. We didn't have iPads, right? We didn't even have Blackberries, really. We had landlines. We didn't really have computers until a little bit later. So I grew up essentially as technology grew, I grew along with it. So as it advanced, I kind of grew up with it, and that's a unique experience. I have a very unique perspective on that. But I learned a lot, and I advanced my skills with it as well. So it's not like it just passed me by. I was always doing computers and stuff like that since middle school. I did a bunch of cybersecurity stuff in middle school, and I did a lot of hacking and stuff, and a lot of it was immature. I used to like hack into people's Minecraft servers and stupid stuff like that. But now that I've grown up, I've matured a little bit. I don't want to get people's phone numbers and prank call them or things like that. I actually want to improve the world and make it more secure. I value data security and privacy. So I've also been a pretty big gamer. I've been gaming for my entire life. One of the first consoles that I got was a Game Boy Color. It had a Wario World on it. So, and I would be playing Pac-Man at the laundromat on the arcade machines. So this is old school. We didn't really have a lot growing up. I wasn't old enough to experience Atari, so that's a little bit beyond my generation. But I did get a Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. I played Super Mario 64. I played Super Mario World. I played Super Mario Bros. 2. All that stuff. Got a GameCube, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, the Wii, and then after a certain point, my stepdad got me a PlayStation 3, and I would play Modern Warfare 2. And then I got a PlayStation 4, and finally I switched to PC gaming, and I started building my own PCs and things like that. I've also used a lot of Linux throughout my years. Surprisingly enough, it's been more recent than all the other stuff. So I started out with a Dell M993 cathode ray tube monitor. So this thing was a piece of junk, right? Like it was yeah, it had Windows XP on it. I was maybe in third or fifth grade, something like that. I don't remember what specs were on it, but it's a pretty old computer. But that's what I grew up with. And at school, we used an iMac G3. So if you've ever watched like Nick Burns, the company computer guy, on that Saturday Night Live, that's where that's from. So I used that exact same computer at school, where they taught us how to type, and I type at 100 words per minute. But throughout the years, I've used other operating systems. I went to Windows 7. I thought that was pretty good. Windows 8 was when things started sucking a lot. Then they got Windows 10, and with all that telemetry and all that crap. And then they had like the file system, like you couldn't search. Like it was just so slow, and I wanted to search the web with Bing. Like the hell was up with that? So what happened was I still had a legacy hard disk drive, so I didn't have a solid state drive. And Windows would just make my hard drive go to 100% like at all times. And it wasn't like a cheap hard drive either. It was like a Seagate Black. So this thing was like, it was not a WD grain, all right? This was like, but anyways, it was 7200 RPM, and it still like chalked my hard drive up. Like I don't know what changed. I don't know why it has to do so many sequential reads and writes, but it was using up all my resources, and I have a feeling that it killed my computer faster, and it would have had more lifetime otherwise. So I switched to Linux. Once the hard drive died, I got a solid state drive. At first, I got the idea from college because I took Linux classes at college, and they gave me the idea to start out with Linux Mint because I thought I was still kind of a noob, but that turned out to be right because I updated my operating system and it broke the whole operating system. I don't know what happened. I think it's kind of like how Linus did his thing with Pop! OS and it broke the whole thing. But anyways, I switched to Debian. Same thing happened. It was crap. I didn't really like that you were even able to do that. And now that I'm more mature in the Linux space, I kind of understand why they do that. Like you want software freedom, you want to be able to do what you want with your operating system. But I didn't really like that. So some people across the wire told me to try Endeavor OS, which is basically Arch for babies. And I tried it, but the live install did not work. It had a kernel bug that prevented my mouse from working on the live install. Like the live install is the thing that you put on the USB, and not that real like install on your computer. So I couldn't even install it. I tried to do a kernel patch and it didn't work, so I threw it in the trash. I went and installed real Arch Linux, and it worked like a charm for 3 years. I loved Arch Linux. The package management was so simple, and it just worked. And like I liked using the terminal to navigate to everything. I didn't like using one of those clunky GUIs. I thought it was awesome. But eventually, just like all the others, it broke too. And what I would find out later is that it didn't actually break. What had happened was there was some kind of weird update or something that changed the way that my network manager was working, and I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. And I had to manually type in the BSSID with the network manager CLI, and but it broke the other. I was using a different manager. I was using like WPA Supplicant or something like that. I don't remember. But yeah, it was not a bug in Arch itself. It was just like, I don't know, the Wi-Fi, the access point didn't want to recognize its own SSID anymore. It required BSSID, which was stupid. But I found that out after I had already installed NixOS, and well, now I've been stuck with NixOS for a while. NixOS is pretty cool, but it has a lot of issues with it that kind of prevent you from using it normally. I would say it's kind of annoying, especially like patching ELFs if you want to use like precompiled programs. It's great for development. It's actually amazing for development because you can get a lot of different packages that you want, and you can have your own dev environments for each and every one of them. It's kind of like Docker, if you ever use that, where everything's like containerized and stuff like that, and they don't mess with each other. But at the same time, if you really want to be efficient, it's kind of a waste of disk space, especially if you have like 30 different copies of libsql or something like that. So there's pros and cons, but I wouldn't really recommend it as a daily driver, but you know I might try again too or something. Who knows, right? Who knows what's in the future? So that's enough about Linux. So let's talk about some of the cool stuff I've done. I've made a Fallout 76 trading website. I created it using Django, JavaScript, which is with jQuery, HTML5, and CSS. If you don't know, Django is a framework for Python, so I made it in Python, essentially. And I made the backend, so the UI I actually stole from the Suki project. If you've never heard of it, it's like basically like some death cult for serial experiments lane. I don't really endorse their actions or agree with what happened, but I mean, clearly their web developer was pretty talented because it looks freaking awesome, dude. It looks sick, dude. Look at that. That's awesome, right? It's down there in the corner if you can't see it. But yeah, I intended it to be for private use, so I had a small group of people that were going to use it, but they never ended up using it. They didn't really care. I mean, I thought it was cool because like trading items and stuff was really annoying. You had to like message people, and like your message would get buried in the Discord, and you wouldn't, like, if you were looking for something specific, you couldn't just search for it because it would be like a 7-day old expired post that was gone, right? So anyways, eventually I kind of gave up on it, and the host that I was using, Python Anywhere, basically threw it in the trash because I haven't logged into the web console for about 2 years, so they just deleted it, packed me up, right? And yeah, that's basically what happened. I kind of picked up steam again on the project in the form of a C++ rewrite. So I'm rewriting. I'm not using a website anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a database from scratch, and I want the well, not from scratch. I'm going to be using libsqlite, and then I'm going to basically make it so that the database is efficient as far as networking is concerned. So I'm going to have like byte codes for each item, and you just basically send the byte code over the network, and you can perform searches and whatnot. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make there's going to be like a downstream kind of rolling distribution of the database. So what that means is that there's going to be like a master database that, is always up to date, right? But people are going to keep local copies of the database on their system. So they don't have to, they can have an offline mode. They can just search for stuff offline if they need to. Because there's no point in using the internet if you already have what you need, right? Now, of course, some people will buy stuff and sell stuff, and, that might be a problem. But generally, like a lot of items just sit there, right? And you might want to price check or do whatever you need to do. So they're going to have an offline copy, and it will periodically like update. Like they'll download updates that basically give them the byte codes for the add and delete query, or not queries, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like someone adds an item to the database, they're going to get that code that that item was added, and then they can just make the changes on their local copy. They don't have to download the whole database again from the internet. Now, of course, there's a couple problems with this. One of the problems is that obviously, the size of the database is going to get pretty, or not the database itself, but the change log is going to get very huge. So I might do like where people re-download the entire database like every couple months or so. But that's not ideal if it were to become like a huge service. Obviously it's not scalable in that sense, but kind of doing it for a small group of people. I want it to be decentralized, so I want like people to use the code that I wrote to make their own databases and kind of run them like in their own small groups. So, I'm not trying to centralize everything and, become the cap god, right, and make a bunch of money from all these players. It's not what I intend to do. So, other cool stuff, I've made a Minecraft storage system. So, I use the ComputerCraft mod in 1.7.10. And as you can see here, there's a lot of pipes, a lot of wires, a lot of redstone. So, what's going on there? Well, I created this project without any help. It was entirely original. I didn't use any guides, no tutorials, no libraries. I didn't look up any redstone tutorials. I didn't. The only thing I can say that I've used is the ComputerCraft API and obviously the Lua standard library. But other than that, all of this is original. I made it. And so what happens is there's a master computer, so that's the database, right? And it's not really a database, it's more of a hash map, if you're familiar with those. You'll probably learn all of this later on if you continue to watch my channel. But anyways, it's just a huge table of items. It stores them. They're kind of like JSON, but it's a Lua. I shouldn't have said JSON. It's more of a Lua serialized table. It just turns it's like a table. A table is kind of like an array, sort of, not really. And then it just turns it into a string of text, essentially, that you can read. And then when you deserialize it, you get it back in the form of your code, right? But anyways, it stores all these items, kind of like JSON format, not really. And it stores like the location and which node it's in, so like the signal strength that it needs to pull the item. So like it'll be like west 15, that'll be the signal 15 west. And it'll store the node, so if it's like node 1, node 2, node 3, that's what all these different diamond things are. So each node is a computer with a wireless router, so there's a computer that tells the node, hey, I want this item, can you please grab it for me? Then it just activates the redstone. It's pretty simple in concept, but obviously, as you can see, it gets pretty complex when you consider all the logistics and stuff like that. Like how are you going to get the redstone signal over? That's what those black pipes are. Those are part of thermal foundation. How are you going to get the network request across? How are you going to get the item? There's item pipes interwoven in that structure there. And, there's a lot of complexity involved when you start to consider all these things. But anyways, so this is a pretty efficient storage system. It's not exactly like AE2 levels. Like I forget what the name of it is. But that thing where you get the giant network nodes and you get like a little computer and you see all your items. It's not that sophisticated because it uses thermal foundation caches and they only store 600,000 items per cache. But still way better than vanilla, especially if you don't have AE2 installed. Pretty cool, huh? So, why am I creating this channel? Well, this is going to be an educational channel. So, I'm going to be teaching a lot of computer science, computer information science related topics. And there's been a lot of frustrations with education, especially in college. Basically, like, computer classes tend to throw the book at you. They just give you a bunch of crap to learn, and the lectures are very subpar. They don't really teach a lot to you. It's very hard to understand. One of the biggest things was in my electronics class. I took an electronics class in 2024, and they gave us this book, and it was like a very technical scientific book. It was, I think it was called Grob's Basic Introduction to Electronics, if you've ever read that. But essentially what it is it's like, it goes into like the physics, right? It goes into like, this is how you calculate the galvanized, like whatever the hell, right? And it's like, what the hell is this thing talking about? Like, this is how you make a horseshoe magnet. And it's like, Jesus Christ, right? Like, it goes into all this. But when you get into the actual math, like if you do the math, it's just basic algebra. Like, you take one number, you divide it by like some scientific notation, and you times it by 2 or whatever, and you get the answer. And it's like, wow. So if I had just simply paid attention to the math and like, know the general idea of like what I'm doing, like what's my goal in calculating this, then I would have understood the concept. But instead, I had to read all this like physics jargon to even get to that point, and it was really annoying. The same thing kind of happens with computer classes, where people kind of ramble on and on and on about like very technical details. Especially if you've never been introduced to these before, this can be very, very confusing. The other thing is that they kind of throw busy work at you. So again, with the especially my computer classes, actually, they just give me a ton of homework. Like, you do labs, right? And if you've ever done labs before, you know that they just have you like, oh, okay, connect to this route. Like, you're basically copy pasting everything. You're not learning anything. Like, this is how you change directory. This is chmod. This is and like, you read about it and then you forget about it, and you don't learn it unless you're actually like applying it in your real life. It's going to be a pretty hard goal to achieve on this channel, but I would hope that the labs and educational material kind of explains it to you in a very understandable way. So what about YouTube? I'm a YouTuber myself here, apparently. So, what about that? Well, I did look up alternatives, especially for like CCNA, and yeah, they just kind of suck. Like, I found this series, I forgot what it's called, but it's like 30 minutes long each class, and it reiterates itself over and over and over again. It just says the same stuff. Like, it doesn't take 30 minutes to know what a switch is, what a router is, what a firewall is, and what they do. Like, I don't know, I think I could explain that in 5 to 10 minutes maximum. Should not take 30 minutes. And that's kind of what I'm going for on this channel. A lot of reputable channels make long and superfluous material that doesn't add any educational value, just waste your time. So that's kind of what I want to remediate with this channel. So what are my future plans? What kind of courses are we going to teach on this channel? So we're going to be, the first course I'm going to add is the Certified Cisco Networking Academy. So we're going to look at CCNA 1 up to CCNA 4. I'm going to cover CCNA security shortly after that. And then we're going to look at the newer, more relevant Palo Alto firewall stuff. So like PCCA and PCCP. And then we'll look into the guts of PAN-OS and things like that, like how to do all that stuff. And we'll look at like zero trust security models, things like that. And then from there, I'll cover probably like the CompTIA stuff. So we'll look at like A+, Linux+, Security+, all that stuff. And we'll probably cover network cabling as well, and I might want to revisit the certified ethical hacking stuff. And then once I finish all that, I might pivot into a programming course for like C++, Python, things like that. And, that's pretty much what this channel is going to be. Like, networking, IT stuff, programming, systems administration, things like that. So, any social media. So, am I going to have any other, what are my platforms, what are links I'm going to use? Well, I'm not going to have any social media, right? This YouTube channel is the only social media I'm going to have. And the reason that is because it's too difficult to moderate communities, especially on things like Discord. I have the example there of Tigaholic, but basically what happened in his or her community, whichever you want to use, is that, there was a lot of, well, basically, like, the community is not really good. They don't follow the rules, and, they just kind of get away with it. And I didn't really like it, because a lot of, like, weird grooming stuff was going on. And, Tiger herself wasn't grooming. She specifically got stalked by this guy, right? Who wanted to pay her to do stuff. And, a lot of weird stuff happened. So she kind of cracked down on the Discord, because the Discord is like a public relations, like a nightmare, right? Like, you have all these like young teenagers who are like posting pictures of themselves. So she kind of like made like no selfies allowed, none of that. And people just don't give a shit. They just do it anyway. That's really fucking annoying, and it irritates me, right? And it's very difficult to keep up on that. I just don't want to deal with it. So Um, so that's it. I'm just gonna be on YouTube. If I get striked or whatever, like, oh well, like that'll be the end of me, right? I don't really care. I don't seek to make money off of this channel. Um, I also don't want to be beholden to the rules of any specific platform, like especially on like stuff like Twitter and Blue Sky. Like, you might have certain messages get removed, and I want all my content to be in one place. Like, one platform shouldn't have like different content than the other, if that makes sense. Like, if I make a post and it gets deleted on Twitter but it stays up on Blue Sky, that's really annoying, right? Like, I want everything to be visible no matter what you're looking at, right? The other thing is, if I do end up doing that, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to host my own website, so that, I don't. That would be a little bit tricky, because, there's stuff like Cloudflare, which is really annoying. And, if you're familiar with security, self-hosting can also be a big challenge. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll cross that bridge when I get there, if I get there. I'm not expecting this channel to blow up or anything like that. So, what are some closing words? Well, thanks for listening. I hope you watch and enjoy my content in the future, especially if you're looking to be a system administrator, a network engineer, a programmer, or anything like that. Or if you really just like to learn about technology, that would also be pretty good for you. Subscribe if you want to see my videos in your recommended feed. Hit the bell if you want notifications. Like if you like the video, dislike it if you dislike it. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions, questions, or feedback. I'll try to get back to as many people as possible. Can't make any guarantees. I'm probably not going to have a very consistent upload schedule, so if you're looking for like daily or weekly content, that's not going to happen. It's very non-committal, so we'll kind of see what happens, right? And this is just like credits, because I use this slide from from Slides Go or whatever, this template. So yeah, that's it. Bye guys. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.